Greetings and salutations. I hope this video finds you doing well wherever you are in the world. So you want to learn Linux. We're going to get right down to basics today. This video is for the person who is just now becoming Linux curious. You're looking at your current computing situation and you're wondering if Linux could benefit you. You haven't even stuck your toe in the water yet. If that's you, I'm glad you're here. If you already use Linux, chances are you're helping others learn how to use Linux. And what you'll hear in this video will probably help you help others. So I'm glad you're here as well. Who the hell am I? I think that is a fair question, and I think we ought to answer that one before we get into the main topic. Because otherwise, I'm just another voice on YouTube, and why the hell should you listen to what I have to say? Well, I've been administrating computer systems for 25 years. I went to school for radio engineering in 1986 and ended up moving over to programming. I've always been somewhere between the back shop and the main studio. And along the way, I have worked with automation systems, scheduling systems, audio and video editing systems, and the networks that tie it all together. I've been using Linux for about 15 years. I started using Linux full-time in 2012. Before that, I had it running here and there, but after 2012, I had a machine running Linux that I used every single day. I've helped thousands of people get started with Linux through Easy Linux. That is a program that I kicked off in 2015. It's sort of a non-profit project, and what I started out doing was installing Linux on people's computers. I would help them to do it over the phone, and I'd walk them through the process. The idea was that if they had a good solid install, that they would have a better chance of having a more pleasant Linux journey and they would stick with the system. That turned out to be absolutely true. And working with all those people taught me a lot about how people interact with their computers and how they learn. Now, I don't do that these days. I don't do any one-on-one anything. I have another job. I simply don't have time to do that. But I still help people through email and comments here on YouTube, all kinds of places. I've posted hundreds of Linux-related videos right here on this channel. If you are already subscribed, chances are that's why you're here. I do videos about audio equipment as well, especially turntables and records and cassettes and things like that, because I have a fascination. Like I said, I started out wanting to be an engineer, and to this day I'm still fascinated with any audio recording device. I've published several bash scripts. Now, these are little programs that you can run in your terminal on your Linux system that do all kinds of groovy things. Bash is the shell that runs in your terminal. On most systems, that's the default. It's also a computer language that you can use to write programs. So I've been fascinated with bash scripting for the last few years, and if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to easylinux.com and you look at the bash scripts page. That's everything that I have written so far and published. So that's a bit about me. Let's get into the main subject. First of all, I want you to understand that you don't switch to Linux, even though that's what you hear all the time. People say, well, I'm sick of this, I'm going to switch to Linux, and people are trying to get people to switch to Linux. It is more accurate to say that you should migrate to Linux. And the reason is, if you switch to Linux, then that would imply that you're going to just download a Linux distribution, blow out whatever your current installation is, whether that be Windows or Mac, and then put Linux on top of it and start from scratch. That is a recipe for disaster. If you do that, you're going to be banging your head up against a wall. You're going to find yourself very frustrated after a while. It is much better to start using Linux alongside your current setup. So my advice is to put Linux on its own computer. And it doesn't have to be the world's greatest computer. It can be that old computer you have in the closet that you stopped using when you bought your current machine. It could be a laptop that you picked up from a friend or a family member or something you bought at a second-hand shop. It really doesn't matter. Anything built in the last 10 years is going to happily run Linux, and it will probably run it well enough for you to learn how to use it. Some people ask, well, what about a virtual machine? That's where you can run an operating system on your current computer as a program running in your current operating system. Yes, VMs are very cool, and they can teach you an awful lot, but they can only take you so far. At some point, you're going to have to put Linux on bare metal to get the full experience of how it works. Now, this is always very controversial, and it always generates a lot of talk in the comment section. I do not advise people to dual boot their computers. If you don't know what a dual boot means, that means that you have two operating systems running on the same machine, and when it boots up, you choose whether or not you would run Windows or Linux, for instance, or Mac and Linux, or whatever's loaded on it. Dual boots are fine for people who have a very good understanding of how it works. In other words, they know how a computer boots and how all that happens. And there's always somebody that comes along in the comments that says, well, dual booting's not that big a deal. I've done it for years and I've never had a problem. That is probably because you understand how it works and you know how to manage it. Most people who use computers don't. And it's for them that I say, don't dual boot. Don't let somebody come along and say, well, I'll help you get started with Linux, and they install Linux on your computer and they set up a dual boot and walk away. Because if you get an update on either Linux or Windows that somehow trashes the other system, you're not going to know how to fix that. It's very common for Windows updates to come in and rewrite the bootloader, and if it does, the next thing that happens is that your computer no longer has Linux on it, and if that's what you're using almost exclusively, then you're going to be in big trouble. So I just say stay away from that and just keep it on separate computers. Period. Keep your present system up and running. Like I said, don't erase it and start over with Linux, because you really need to give yourself time to learn. I put that down at the bottom, but here's where I need to say that, is the fact that you yourself are going to take some time to get accustomed to Linux. There are things that you're doing on Windows that you might not immediately find a direct alternative on Linux. For instance, if you play a lot of games, you have titles that you're playing on Windows. They might not necessarily be available on Linux. And you don't want to just dump your games. You put a lot of money into them and you like to play, right? No problem. Keep your Windows machine. Move your personal stuff off of that machine, put it on your Linux box, and then use your Windows machine as a gaming system. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I myself, the Linux guru who is making this video, am sitting in front of a Windows 10 computer. I have this computer because of my job. There is software that we use in the radio station that runs exclusively on Windows. It will not run in a virtual environment. It needs to be on hardware, and we have a Windows shop. So therefore, when I log in to do my show, or to dub music into the system, or produce a commercial, or whatever I have to do, I'm doing that on Windows. But I don't have any personal information on that computer. It's a work computer. And I don't have it on my network either. When I want to take data from my Linux machine and put it on my Windows machine, I actually put it on a USB stick and unplug it and put it in there. That's how I do it. So in the real world, you may have to continue running your Windows system or your Mac for quite some time. Whatever you do, make frequent backups of your data. This is so important, especially on your new Linux system, because you're going to, at some point in time, bork up this system. That's what we call it. You borked the system. And that just simply means that you killed it. It's a brick. It won't work now. And the only thing that you can do is reinstall. And in that case, you want to be able to get back to where you were as quickly as possible. That's why you should keep backups. Now, I am not a fan of commercial backup software. I have written a lot of backup software. I have a script called BU, which is short for backup, or backup USB. And that will back up an entire Linux system to an external hard drive in a plain and open format. It's not in a special container. A lot of commercial software has these special encrypted container files, and you can't use them unless you have the software. And then there are people who try and back up their system using some sort of cloning, like Clonezilla or something like that, where you clone the entire drive. That is really a cumbersome way to back up a computer, and if you have to change hardware, that can cause all kinds of problems. And it's not the most reliable for getting back to where you started from either, just to let you guys know. So when I say make backups, I'm talking about just copy the data over to a USB drive or something like that that's offline in a way that you can get to it from all of your systems. Just that simple. Now, once you've got that in place, then you shouldn't be afraid to experiment. You can try to customize your system or learn more about it or enhance the performance without worrying about screwing it up. You don't need this every day. And there's not a Linux user on the planet who hasn't sat there and watched as their entire system just goes away because they put in the wrong delete command in the terminal, or they deleted the wrong file, or installed a program that didn't work right, or whatever. It happens. It's okay. Be prepared for it. And of course, give yourself time to learn. It's very important. A lot of people get frustrated with Linux because they try and go too quickly. They're trying to get ahead of the system. They're trying to manipulate it. Give yourself time to learn. Just give yourself a running system that you can poke around with and play with for a while that isn't mission critical, that you don't need to get your work done every day. Give yourself that time to play. That's the best way to learn. And as you become more comfortable with it, then you can start relying on Linux more and more and more. People ask all the time, there are so many different distributions of Linux. What Linux distribution should I start out with? Now, over the years, I have whiffy-waffled back and forth on this, and at different points in time, I have recommended flavors of Ubuntu and Linux Mint, but these days, I'm back to recommending Linux Mint just 100% all the way. And the reason is because I have been using Linux Mint for almost a year now on my daily driver machine, and it has been so stable and so impressive that I really think that this is the best way to go in the current environment. So what are the good things about Mint? First of all, it's very easy to use. The desktop, if you download Cinnamon version, which is the one that I recommend for just about everybody, is going to be extremely familiar. This is stuff that you know how to do. If you've used Windows or even Mac for years, you're going to sit down in front of one of these Mint systems and you're just going to be able to use it. It's not a problem. You're not going to think twice about it. When you get Linux Mint installed, it is a fully functioning system with all of the software that you need to do basic things. Like you get the entire LibreOffice suite, and things like the dictionary and the thesaurus are already enabled and turned on, so you don't have to worry about doing stuff like that. And a lot of the deeper systems stuff, just little tools and things that don't come included with like Ubuntu and some other systems, they're going to be there and they're going to be configured for you. They're ready to go, which is really nice. You get a full kernel stack in there with a development. So if you're going to be compiling programs at some point, it's already there for you. You don't have to set that up. It's very nice. Mint is all point and click from the moment that you install it. And this is a big point for people who are just starting with Linux. Some people are very intimidated by a terminal. They've heard, oh, to use Linux, you have to type commands in at a terminal, and it's very cryptic and it's hard to do. And some people get very indignant about it. They're like, why should I have to use a terminal in 2021? It's stupid. I'm not going to do that. Well, you don't have to do that. Mint is point and click, but there's a caveat to that, and that is if you ask me for help with your Linux Mint setup at any given time, chances are I'm going to have you open up a terminal. I'm going to tell you a command to type in. I'm going to ask you what you see on your screen. because that's how I approach the system. And that's how many people who are going to be helping you approach the system. So what I always tell new users is get a nodding acquaintance with the terminal. You don't have to be super proficient at it, but just kind of understand how it works, because if you need to repair something or you should need to do something, you want to be prepared for that. Got a wonderful video on this channel called Beginner's Guide to the Bash Terminal. And for you pedantic people out there, I know that Bash is not a terminal, it's a shell. But that title is for searchability, not for perfect phrasing, okay? So don't give me a bunch of crap about that. Now, Mint is very well documented, and that is another reason. You can go to the Linux Mint site. I will put the link in the description, and you can download their user's guide, which is not very verbose, and it's pretty easy to understand, and it's a PDF, and you can sit down and read it before you do anything, before you even attempt to do anything with it at all. So that's nice. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a large community that's willing to help you with Linux Mint, and there's a lot of great information out there on the internet. Mint upgrades are super easy, especially within a release number. So right now we're on Linux Mint 20, and I think we're on Linux Mint 20.2. So if you install Linux 20.1, when it comes time to upgrade, it's really just point, click, walk away, done. And I installed Linux Mint 20 when it was brand new, and I have not upgraded the system, nor do I see the need to do so. Linux Mint 20 is doing just fine for me, and I don't need any of the features that have come along in 0.1 or 0.2. So it's entirely up to you. Now, when Linux Mint does a major upgrade, and that would be going to Linux Mint 21, they'll still provide an upgrade path for you. It might not be quite as easy as point, click, walk away, but there will be a way to upgrade the system in place. And that is something they've been offering for a while now, since Linux Mint 17. And it's very nice. Much older versions of Linux Mint, the only way to move from one number to the next, one major number, was to reinstall, but that's changed now. And Linux Mint is super stable. It has been a wonderful environment to work in over the last year, and I have been using this every day for work. This is the computer that I use to write copy for things that I do on the air in my other job at the radio station, and do research and a lot of web work, and of course web administration. I have a website and email, and I've got all kinds of stuff that I do with Linux Mint. Manage my music collection with Linux Mint, and create music files that go into the automation system for the computer. There's all kinds of crazy things I've done with this machine, and it's not even blinked at me. It just works. So that's another reason I'm recommending Linux Mint. Finally, let's talk about asking for help. So you got yourself installed, you got yourself set up, and you come across something that you don't understand. How do you deal with this? Well, first of all, as Spatry used to say, for those of you who have been around YouTube and Linux for a while, you'll remember Spatry. Mr. Google is your best friend. All right? You do a search in Google, and chances are you're going to find the answer to the question. And you have to be creative with your searches, and you have to choose your words carefully. If you put in 3 words and you wonder why you don't get help and it's nothing there, and then you get all upset, it's because you're not being specific enough. So for instance, if you wanted to install Linux on a particular Dell computer, I would tell you to go to Google and type in install Linux Mint Dell name of machine, whatever it is, right? Chances are that's going to bring up forum entries, all kinds of stuff. People who have done this before, threads. You can read through it. You're going to find out about how that works in case there's any hardware driver conflict thing you got to deal with. Whatever the deal is, you're going to find out about it. So that's the kind of searches you need to learn how to do. The next thing that you should do is join the community. Join the Linux Mint forums, or whatever distribution of Linux you happen to be using. Be a part of it and ask questions. There are people there who are very willing to help you. And unless you come across some sort of bug that's unsolvable until they fix the bug, most of the solutions are pretty easy. Now, when you do that, you need to be patient, and you need to be kind, and you need to be courteous. And you need to realize that the people who are answering your questions are doing it voluntarily. All right? If you're talking to the developer of a program that you're trying to use in Linux, chances are he's doing this voluntarily. It's not like a piece of software that you paid for, and you paid for support, so you are entitled to have support, and this support is... You can't go in there cursing the product. You can't do it. You can't sit there and go, Linux is stupid. I don't understand why doesn't this work? This is dumb. Whatever. No. Be kind, be courteous, and realize that you're speaking to volunteers and that what they're doing is a labor of love. And if you do that, you're going to have a lot more success getting your problem solved. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people in the community that aren't very nice. You're going to come across those people occasionally. And if you do, stay out of the drama. Don't start a bunch of crap with them. There's always some drama going on in the Linux community. This is from hard-won experience. I used to get caught up in the drama myself. I don't do that anymore. I stay out of it. I let the people who want to do drama, and then I do what I need to do. So just move on and find your answer elsewhere and don't worry about it. Whatever you learn, document it. Keep notes, whether that's physical notes that you write in a notebook, or what I do is I open up the text editor and copy in all the commands and instructions that I need to get this done, and then I throw it in a file and then throw that in a directory I call Linux Notes. And one of these days I'm going to do a video where I don't do anything but just go through all of those notes. I would like to post that sometime just for funsies. I've been thinking about doing that video. If that sounds like a good idea to you subscribers, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see the Linux Notes video, where I just talk about problems that I've solved through the years. It's a great resource later on, because if you come upon the same situation and you find that you need some command or some tweak, there it is. You've documented it. And finally, give back however you can, because that's what keeps the community going, is people contributing to the community in one way or another. That could be a little money out of your pocket for the distribution you use, like Linux Mint. You send them a little donation there. Or maybe there's a particular piece of software that you use on Linux that is important to you, and the software developer has a web page where he asks for donations. Throw him a bone, man. Give them a little bit. And if you can't do financial things, you're just too poor to do that. I understand. I'm in the same boat myself. I would love to dump a lot of money into the community, but I can't. So my contribution is things like this, what I'm doing now, just sharing my knowledge, getting it out there, and saying, okay, this is my experience. Share your experiences. Blog what you do. Some people blog their Linux journey and they share as they go along. It's wonderful. It's kind of old school these days. We don't hear a lot about people blogging, but it's a good thing to do. And there's a lot of good information in those sorts of blogs as well. So I hope this video helps. I hope this points you in the right direction. Cannot wait to read your comments and hear what you guys have to say about this. And yes, it is sort of a way of me kind of starting over. I'd like to become more involved with the community. I took some time away from the Linux community. There was some negative things going on, but I'm starting to think that maybe that has kind of run its course and things have settled down. And I think it's time that we turn the page and start a new chapter in the world of Linux and welcome some new blood into the community, new users here, and just keep on going. Thanks for watching.